Good morning, everyone. My name is Charlie Lunday, and this is a report about the age and acquisition. First language acquisition starts in early childhood, but second language acquisitions can happen in childhood early or late, as well as in adulthood. The critical hypothesis states that the first few years of life is the crucial time in which an individual can acquire a first language if presented with adequate stimuli and that first language acquisitions relies on neuroplasticity. The critical period hypothesis or sensitive period hypothesis claims that there is an ideal time window of brain development to acquire language in linguistically rich environment, after which further language acquisitions become much more difficult and effortful. Critical values essentially cut off values that define regions where the statistics are unlikely to lie. For example, a region where the critical values is exceeded with probability alpha is null hypothesis is true. The critical period hypothesis says that there is a period of growth in which full native competence is possible when acquiring a language. This period from early childhood to adolescence. The critical hypothesis has implication for teachers and learning programmers, but it is not universally accepted. That's my report and thank you.
So let's move on to the right hemispheric participation. In the second language learning, there is significant right hemispheric participation. This participation is particularly active during the early stage of learning the second language. At post-pubescent study from Abler include that there is also left hemisphere participation during the early stages of second language acquisition. This means that during the learning process of second language, the right hemispheric of the brain is more function or more active than the left. Nagfa-function yung right hemispheric natin but at the same time, meron ding nagfa-function sa left hemispheric natin. This is according to the study of post-pubescent Obler, especially during the early stage or early childhood, mostly children ages of 1 to 3 years old. Yes, we can't deny the fact that the first language start in early childhood, but it also happened in the second language acquisition. Just like my nephew, ages of 3. He can already know how to use or how to speak our first language. But every time na wala siyang kalaro, he always asks for our phone in order for him to watch videos online like cartoons. Then one time, I asked him if he want to eat. Then he replied, "No, I don't want." I was surprised. Kasi pag tinatanong ko siya, ang lagi niyang sagot ay madikayat. So, then I realized that is the influence of the cartoon he watched every time he borrowed our phone. So you see, children can also learn second language at the early childhood, not only the first language. So that is the end of my report. Let's move on to the significance of accent report by Mr. Bulahao. Mr. Bulahao, the floor is yours.
Okay, the significance of accent. The significance of accents, since we were born, these speech muscles are getting developed in order to get what we call a foreign accent. The importance of this age and acquisition means tremendous degree of muscular control is required to achieve the fluency of native speaker of a language. A tremendous degree as yung parang paglalaki ng muscle sa leeg natin. So, makikita natin as puberty, di ba? Is parang they are fluent in other language. Because when we go through the baby, hindi natin, they are not fluent in the other language, especially with those children who are in environmental problems. So, so mga bata is, they are fluent in mother tongue. They are the first learn to see a language. Okay, as we go to the other definition. Okay. As birth, the speech muscles are developed only the extent that the larynx can control sustained cries. These speech muscles gradually develop and control some complex sounds. Complete phonemic control is present in virtually all children before puberty. Okay, as we can see, much more the muscles develop into the extent that the larynx can control sustained cries. Especially those mga bata, di ba? Habang umiiyak sila, they will completely develop their voice or their sounds. And these speech muscles are parang lumalaki. They are developed and they are controlled some complex sounds. Okay, magagawa lang ito pag mas kukumpleto yung pagiging fluent in foreign language if we are getting before puberty. Very old children before puberty.
Language ego. This may include the affective domains such as empathy, self-esteem, inhibition, imitation, anxiety, and the likes. However, let us take a look at the egocentricity in human development. We already know that young children are highly egocentric. Why? It's because they think that the world revolves about them and they see all events as focusing on themselves. And as the children grow older, they become more aware of themselves, more conscious, and they seek to understand their self identity. Several decades ago, Alexander Giora, a researcher in the study of personality, in second language learning proposed what he called the language learning. And he stated that the language ego is the identity that a person develop in reference to the language he or she speak, which also refers as the identity that the learners develop when learning a second language, which includes the set of emotions he or she experiments in the process of learning, and it also includes a new way of thinking. The student's language ego can be an emotional interference for language learning that may cause frustration or confusion. The interaction of the native language and ego development is what ego implies for any monolingual person. The language ego may explain why adults struggle to learn a second language. Hence, during the puberty period, the child's ego is active, getting bigger and able to adapt or flexible. Puberty's combined physical, emotional, and cognitive changes result in defensive mechanism in which the language ego becomes protective and defensive or aggressive. Moving on to the interference or the intervention between the first and second language, it says here that much of the research on non-simultaneous second language acquisition in both children and adults has focused on the effects of the first and second language interaction.
Interference of adult.
Interference of adults. Adults more cognitively secure appear to operate from the solid foundation of the first language and thus manifest more interference. Ang mga nasostong gulang, mas malawak ang kanilang pag-unawa. But it was pointed out earlier that adults do manifest errors not unlike some of the errors children make. The result of creative precision of the second language, an attempt to discover, is rules apart from the rules of the first language. Ngunit, ang mga nasostong gulang ay masyadong nagpapakita ng mga pagkakamali. Hindi katulad ng mga pagkakamali ng ginagawa ng mga bata. However, may be more readily used to bridge gap that the adult learner cannot fill by generalization within the second language. In this case, we do well to remember that the first language can be facilitating factor and not just an interfering factors. Gayunpaman, mas madaling gamitin ang first language upang magkakaintindihan dahil nahihirapan ang mga adults na gamitin ang second language upang ilahad ang kanilang saloobin. Tandaan natin ang first language ay siyang nagpapadali upang tayo magkakaunawaan.
The continuations of age and acquisitions, and this is my part, the advantages and disadvantages of age and acquisitions. So, first, dito muna tayo sa advantage. Number 1 is, it provides informations about many aspects of development. Just like in learning language processes in adults and children, we can see the good development of our self. Physical development, it includes the language development, moral and gender development. However, age is an important but not overriding factor. So next, number 2, it shows relative frequency of occurrence of constructions. So relative frequency can be defined as the number of times an event occurs divided by the total number of events occurring in a given scenario. So, like in learning language processes, all people have individually and different processes of learning in one language regardless of age. There are shy children and very communicative adults. And number 3 is enables opportunities to compare not only the child's pronunciations but any aspects of development with surrounding adult input. So, like social development and other aspects of development. It's advisable to encourage language learning at an early age because the younger the child is, the more they can take advantage of neuromuscular mechanism that promotes language learning and thus reach a native like level effort and times. So, other advantages such as increased communications abilities, better articulations, tolerance to foreign cultures, and personal cognitive development are among the benefits of early language learning. So, next, let us proceed to the disadvantages of number 1 is this would not provide an example of every constructions the child knows. Yet, this does not exclude effective language learning in adults. Under ideal learning situations, with motivations and a positive attitude, everybody can reach an excellent language level. And next, each study involves only one child, limiting the ability to generalize the results. So, this is therefore a very time-consuming method providing results which may not even reliable, or it needs some changes on how we are going to conduct study or in learning other language. We need to study more than one group of people. Next, interpretations difficulties arise. It is because of having poor ability in listening and speaking, or having insufficient speed adaptability and inaccuracy. But as I said before, everybody can reach an excellent language level with motivations and positive attitudes, or always think positive. That's all.